What was going on at Panthers OTAs on Wednesday? I'll tell you right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council. Why? Because on Fridays throughout the offseason, I'm right here on the show answering your weekly Friday mailbag questions. So either at me or DM me over on Twitter at Julian Council to get your questions in for this week's edition of the weekly Friday mailbag on Locked On Panthers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started today. Week 2 of OTAs, organized team activities, which, by the way, we talked about it on Friday, are voluntary, so the players do not have to be there, but you would hope, coming off a 2-15 season, whether you were here last year or if you're a new player, that you would be learning the schemes and trying to take the necessary steps back to turning around the situation here in Carolina. Thank you very much, David Tepper, for what you've done. He's not actually sitting over there, but I feel just a dark spirit in that corner. Either way, I want to talk about some of the things that Dave Canales had to say, Ickey Ekwonu, and we even heard from Josie Jewell. Didn't have a lot of takeaways when he had to say, quite honestly, as they had their week 2 OTA press conference once a week. They talked to the media. So last week spoke to the media. I gave my takeaways. This week spoke to the media. Gave my takeaways. Next week will be the final week of OTAs. They'll speak to the media, and I will again give you my takeaways from what they had to say. So let's start off with Dave Canales, your head coach, Panthers' new head coach here in Carolina. A lot of positivity, and God, really just enjoy watching him just speak, and just the energy that he has is really effervescent. Will that lead to wins? To be determined. But one guy the Panthers really need this season to help them win games is Xavier Leggett, their first-round wide receiver, who they could not wait another day to have here in Carolina. They traded to the first round, got Leggett and the 5th-round pick. Thank you, Brandon Beane and Buffalo, and thank you, Dan Morgan, the Carolina Panthers' new general manager, for getting that deal done. Now, Leggett's had to go through rookie minicamp. He's also had to go through one week of OTAs, and the Panthers have decided they need to slow some things down with him, as he was not out there at practice on Wednesday. Canales was asked about it. He said it was precautionary. He said that on Tuesday, because Panthers also practice on Tuesday, they'll practice one more time on Friday. That'll be their 6th OTA practice, 6 of 9. No jokes, be an adult. And they thought like he needed to kind of take some time, as he was a little slow. Trainers went to go look at him. Shouldn't be anything too big of a deal, especially at this point in time. You have a lot of young players, and it's something that Dave Canales said. You got a lot of young players who are trying to get used to the speed of NFL practices, and it's, of course, hot in Charlotte, as it always is this time of year. You just got to get used to it, and you don't want to overexert a player, especially during a voluntary period of time. And that's a big reason why they decided, let's just pump the brakes here, give Xavier some time. And I'm sure once next week rolls around, maybe even Friday, he'll be back out there full go. Maybe not as full of a go as before, but he'll be out there working towards being a primary option for Bryce Young in this offense in 2024. Where's Eddie Pinheiro? Is he still MIA, or has he decided to come kick and help out the Panthers during OTAs? He is still back home in Florida. He was asked about it. Dave Canales was, whether there's an update. He said, no update. But Harrison Mevis made all his kicks again today. He has apparently missed a couple of kicks during this OTA period, but the ones are when the media are around, he makes. And it's possible that the media has inspired Harrison Mevis to win this kicking job. We'll see how it turns out. I do, though, believe that there is going to be a kicker competition in Carolina. I truly feel that way. I understand from all the tea leaves that this could be a contract situation where Eddie Pinheiro believes he deserves more money, did not have the best season last year, and he's had that trend of where he'll be good one year, and not good, just like great. Then he'll go to being mid to good to mid to good and mid, and next year you're supposed to swing back up to good, but you want some consistency out of him. And you desperately need consistency, especially as a team that has a hard time winning football games. And kickers can and will lose you games. And of course, win you games. We should know that in Carolina after moving on from Graham Gano, who had injury issues at the tail end of his career in Carolina, went on to be a good kicker with the Giants, one of the best in the league, and got his revenge over Matt Rule. The Panthers have not been able to find a consistent kicker until really Pinheiro, but Pinheiro had some inconsistencies last year, and we'll see how it works out. Zane Gonzalez was solid, but didn't have the biggest leg, and that's one thing about Pinheiro. Doesn't have the biggest leg. Been fairly accurate kicker in the NFL, and even was more accurate in less kick attempts back in college at Florida. Harrison Mevis had a ton of attempts, but didn't have the greatest percentage, as a massive leg. And that was something that Dave Canales brought up on Wednesday during his press conference about how Harrison Mevis has kind of boomed some of those kicks. And he's not called a thicker kicker for nothing, folks. I do think that there's a competition, and I think it's a good thing to have a competition. And it may not be the worst thing for a team that I don't think is going to be competing for the playoffs this year to go to a younger kicker and to groom him to be the guy. A different situation than what they had when Harrison Butker was competing with Graham Gano. You're going to go with the veteran in that situation, especially the veteran is better than the younger guy at that point in time in the career. And yes and no, Butker's been great. So has Graham Gano, and Matt Rule is the blame. And also injuries. That's also frustrating. I think it'll be a kicker competition. And I'm excited for a, dare I say, kick-traversy here in Carolina. I know. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. All right. Joint practices with the Jets are going to happen again. The news was broken by Robert Saleh earlier on Wednesday, as he said they're going to have, the New York Jets are going to have joint practices with all three teams. They play in the preseason. And I think that's a smart thing to do, to be able to get to see the new bodies, to also get more work for your veterans. You're not going to see them really play that much during a preseason game when they have those practices joint wise. And I think it's a smart thing. And Dave Canales brought up how for the Panthers, they have like usually a 5-man front, and he's going to get to see more 4-3 looks out of Saleh and the Jets. And they need to get to see new looks throughout that period of time, ramping up to the season. So it's smart there. They also have a relationship that dates back to their time in Seattle, where they were both quality control coaches. So he's known Robert Saleh for 13, 14 years. That is Dave Canales has. And they did joint practices with the Jets last year in Tampa. We'll be curious to see if the Panthers do joint practice with their other two preseason opponents. I think it would be wise, and getting as many reps for the young guys and for the veterans as possible against another team in a controlled environment like a joint practice, I think is paramount for this team to really take those next steps to having success once Sunday rolls around later on this season in the fall. Offensive line, going to be a key topic of discussion once those joint practices roll around. Let's not forget, Quentin Williams had, 11 by his count, sacks during that joint practice period. Let's not have that happen again. Now with Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt into the fold and Austin Corbett playing the center, I think they're going to have a better opportunity. But still, Quentin Williams is one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL and a true pass rusher, which the Panthers, Derek Brown, great player as he is, doesn't really show that if they ever go against the ones in practice. So O-line development, that is something that we're all going to be focusing on, especially Ickey Ekwonu. And Darren Gant of Panthers.com asked Dave, what can you really gain from offensive linemen right now in late May who don't have pads on? This is a very physical position. Dave just said they're focused on communication and technique, and you can never not work on technique and communication enough as an offensive line. And that's the thing. When the Panthers have had healthy offensive lines, they have played fairly well because they've had the continuity. They've been able to communicate and understand everyone's on the same page. Last year, we have 7 different left guards, 8 different right guards. You're going to have difficulty with communication, continuity, all that you need. And guys whose technique may not be as good as the guys that they're having to replace who went down with injury. So that's the focus right now. He also wants to see the same intensity without pads as you're going to have once padded practices come on. And he talked about that padded practices are really more about conditioning more so than the communication and technique, which they're working on right now in shorts and a t-shirt. But Ickey Ekwonu, that's a guy we all want to know how he's going to bounce back, if he's going to bounce back at all in 2024. And Dave Canales said that it's a great system that he runs for tackles because they love to run the ball. And that's something that Ickey was known for coming out of NC State, a reason why Mel Kiper Jr. and a lot of y'all have parroted this idea that he should be a guard. Not saying that you're wrong, just that you don't really have any other substance to say other than he should play guard. No reason why he should play guard, just saying he should play guard. Well, he's not playing guard in Carolina. He's sticking here for the time being. And really the thing, too, that's going to help with the tackles is that the basis of the pass game that Dave Canales runs, and these are his words, is to get the ball out quickly. You get the ball out quickly, you're on the football, you keep the defense off balance on its heels. It's going to help your tackles. Having to be in obvious passing situations because you're constantly down in games like last year is not going to help your tackles. So it's a really friendly offense for tackles, according to Dave Canales. But we'll see whether Ickey can bounce back. And Ickey, haven't heard from him in a while, stepped up to the dais on Wednesday, and he talked about last season. Didn't want to say a lot about it, but he did reveal something that I thought was very interesting. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers, and that could be you, get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. The Timberwolves have taken it to a Game 5 in the Western Conference Finals. They'll meet the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals, and we're all trying to see, can Rudy Gobert, can Cat get it done and send it to a Game 6 and then to a Game 7? We will see. Either way, when it's time to try to bet on these games, of course, FanDuel is the place to go. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The Panthers really went to work fixing the offensive line this offseason. They brought in Damian Lewis to play left guard. He has familiarity with the Panthers' assistant offensive line coach and with this primary Seattle staff that they have that's been coming over from the Pacific Northwest now that Pete Carroll has retired. Also, they brought in Robert Hunt to play guard. Austin Corbett, he's over at center. Brady Christensen, he's a backup now. Cade Mays, back to being a backup. Taylor Zavala, back to being a backup. Better situation for the Panthers. Taylor Moton, back at right tackle. Then at left tackle, got Ickey Ekwonu, who really struggled after a promising rookie season, and that was one of the great disappointments last year in 2023. And there were a ton of disappointments for the Panthers in 2023, but that was not one that I saw coming. And maybe I should have, just based off of the preseason, which I don't want to make too much of the preseason. But the joint practices, that was really the alarm bell for the interior of the offensive line because Quentin Williams, one of the best defensive tackles in football, was kicking their ass repeatedly. It wasn't like we were hearing too much about what was happening on the outside, but we did see it in that game against the Jets where, those first two snaps, Ickey lost bad, looked like the first couple snaps he took in pros against, Myles Garrett. That was a year earlier. Technically 11 months earlier, but still didn't expect to see that. And that's something that carried over from the preseason to the regular season and had a lot of us scratching our heads and trying to figure out how a guy who had played so well, went through a long stretch without giving a sack that season until that Tampa game, how he could falter like that after an offseason where it felt like the Panthers had finally solidified their left tackle position after being a decade into wilderness after Jordan Gross decided to, quit and lose a ton of weight and looks great now. Good for Jordan. So the Panthers really struggled to find that guy, and it felt like it was Ickey. But last year, although Ickey played 1,148 snaps, which was tied 5th most in the NFL, he was penalized 12 times. That was tied 3rd most in the NFL. He allowed 11 sacks, according to Pro Football Focus, which is the 3rd most in the NFL last year. Allowed 44 pressures. Brutal. His PFF grade overall was 67.4. Pass blocking grade was 62.3. Run block grade, that's something thing that he's really good. Not only thing, but something that Panther fans and we knew evaluators really looked at him as being really good at. 77.0 run blocking grade. Rated only as a 39th offensive tackle out of 83 qualifying. So not as bad as it looked. At least he was a top half tackle. but you want that to be better than 39, obviously. And you think about it, you got 32 teams, 2 starters at left and right tackle. That's 64 starters. So looking at the starting tackles, like really maybe 39th out of 64, it may not break down properly like that, but not what you wanted to see. And you honestly compare his grades last year to what he did his rookie season. His PFF grade overall was higher. He had 67.4 compared to 65.3 as a rookie. Pass blocking grade went down from 67.5 to 62.3. His run blocking grade went up from a 64.0 to 77. So he did improve in that manner. And he played less snaps, gave up about the same amount of penalties, 13 his rookie year, gave up half the amount of sacks, was 6, and then 27 pressures. You're going to lose reps as a rookie. To be able to lose reps as a rookie and grow from it like he did, and then to really bounce back the rookie season, but then the crater like last year, I didn't really understand how a guy of his talent does that. Now, y'all say because he's not a real tackle. Maybe it was actually because he didn't have the kind of focus and determination that he should have had. And Ickey basically said that today on Wednesday himself. He said that he did not meet with his coaches that much last offseason. He has made a more concerted effort to do that this offseason, that he was riding off of the coattails of his rookie season. His words. He was riding off the coattails of his rookie season, hearing how great he was, having that streak of not giving up a sack, and how the Panthers have finally found a left tackle of the future back home in Charlotte, living a life in his hometown, and didn't focus, didn't play well, and that he thought he was somewhere that he wasn't. And he got humbled last year, and he said it was a humbling experience. Humbling to the point where, part of the reason why a lot of the guys are not around anymore is because he didn't play well enough. And you want to blame the coaches, certainly do that. The players got to make plays too. And if you play bad, your coach is going to lose his job. And James Campen, who seemed to have other issues within the building, he's no longer here in Carolina. And Ickey Ekwonu is here, and he's got a second opportunity. And I'm somebody who advocated for Ickey Ekwonu to be back as a left tackle. Talk about that, I think, all the way back in January, February. The case for Ickey Ekwonu to be back in Carolina, at least to have fixing whether they should make a decision to change or not. And Dan Morgan stuck with him. They believe in him, and Ickey still believes he's a left tackle, saying that when you look at the entire body of work, that was last year. There were things that came up time and time again that he did not fix. But he was asked, did he feel like if he's happy to be staying a left tackle? He said, yeah, he's glad. He noted he's a team player, but he feels like he's naturally a left tackle and that he's put in the work this offseason to get back to the player that we saw for the majority, not all, but the majority of 2022. And we need him not just be that, but be even better than that. Because you look at the numbers I brought up to you, PFF, this one sample size, or I guess one metric to look at. There was points where he honestly was not that great as far as looking at his overall numbers rookie season compared to last year. But we saw with our own eyes, that is a guy who struggled mightily to be able to protect. And with a new scheme, it's going to be focused on running the football, hopefully not having to be in some of these situations where they're having to pass because they're always down in games. Ickey Ekwonu should play better. But when teams know that you're throwing and you don't work on certain things, you don't put in the time and effort to really take the next step, you get exposed in this league. And he got exposed last year. We'll see if he's able to bounce back because the Panthers, they need him to. If he doesn't, that's a guy like Josh Diamond's here for a reason to see what he can potentially do. And also Brady Christensen. Well, who never knows? But who knows? I'm excited to see Ickey Ekwonu. I'm happy he's still playing left tackle. I was not ready to give up on him. Did not like the tackle market. Did like the tackle draft, but didn't think that was really the road they're going to go down. And I didn't want them to really go down that road knowing that there were so many other things they needed to fix on the offensive line outside of just a guy having a sophomore slump. So we'll see whether that was a sophomore slump or who he truly is. We got time to go until that happens, though. All right. So a lot of y'all keep asking me about Germany, about tickets and all that and how I can help. So I'm just going to answer all those questions like right now, and hopefully y'all hear it and, we get it all figured out. So we'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. The Panthers are going to Munich, and I cannot wait. We still have a ways to go. Not going to happen until November. Flight is booked. Hotel has been booked for months. Was able to correctly predict when that game would be played and thankfully, it's played on a date I wanted it to. And also the week where the flights were cheaper and the hotel was cheaper. Never was going to be during Oktoberfest, but was going to be at the beginning of November. And it officially is going to be November 10th there at the Allianz Arena in Munich, Germany. So since I have alerted y'all that I'll be down there in Munich, if it is down there, over there in Munich, I've had plenty of people hit me up, talk about, let's get a beer, which, yeah, absolutely. Let's get a beer. From my understanding, there are 6 breweries that are represented at the annual Oktoberfest, and I'm going to be there for 6 days. So 1 brewery per day, probably going to go to more because I can go to 6 breweries in one afternoon in Charlotte. I'm fine. I don't have a problem. It's just, it's Saturday and I got to talk about this team for a living. So you can imagine how I feel a lot of times. So you feel bad? You ain't got to talk about it every damn day. Oh boy. But yeah, I definitely want to see y'all once we get to Munich. I also believe I may be staying in the same hotel as Roaring Riot, which will be interesting. But that would be great if that's the case. Would love to hang out with anybody who is a fan of the show, listens to the show, supports me. If you hate the show and you're going to be in Munich, would love to talk to you. And maybe you'll personally like me and then still hate me on the show, which is fine. As long as you watch, you listen, I don't really care. And I got to play actually with a listener this past, what was it, Sunday? Got to play. Horrible round of golf. Absolutely embarrassed myself. Been going to Golf Tech for like a year, and I had never played golf before. I don't know what's going on mentally, just completely wrecked. And I was just like, dude, this is kind of embarrassing. And he's like, the thing is, I don't care about your golf game. It's Matt, by the way, that's his name. I care about your football takes, which I appreciate, but I rather play golf better than my football takes, to be completely honest. And maybe my football takes are trash. So who knows? But Matt, got to play with you again soon. But yeah, guys, I'm out there playing this summer, so maybe I'll run into you. That'll be kind of cool. I also was joking with him, being like, this maybe should be kind of a situation where like I should be charging you because I'm here in my private time playing golf and you're like here with me. A total joke. Like, please relax. Anybody who's getting upset about that, rolling their eyes. It's a complete joke. We both joked about it. Back to the Germany situation. Tickets. People keep asking me, how are you going to get tickets? I'm technically a part of the media. Now, I don't typically go to Panther games because Bleacher Report pays me money after games to go live immediately. Then after that, I come live on here to talk to y'all. So if I went to games, I got to go to the press conference, go in the locker room, and it'd be a while before I go live with y'all. And also, I have like obligations to go on television on the NBC station on Sundays. Like, it's a lot easier for like what I do to just do the podcast from home, watch the game from home, be able to pause things and take care and do everything I need to do from my house than it is to drive over there to 800 South Mint Street and deal with traffic going to the game. Like, and I used to, when I worked at F&Z, went to the games, appreciated all that. Absolutely. It's a great experience. And it's just, for my purposes, don't really need to do it. But if things change where BR's not asking me to pay, not asking me to do live streams, not going to pay me, then maybe I'll be there. But my plan for Munich, for all those people asking, is to be credentialed media, which I'm hoping won't be a problem. I don't think it will be, but I'm hoping it won't be a problem. And I'm sure there's going to be plenty of other people out, like German outlets that want to be credentialed. So we'll see how all that works out. That's my plan. Now, as far as tickets go, I did just think about this over the weekend because I hadn't thought about it. My girlfriend wants to come. Well, she's coming to Munich. That doesn't want to come, but she's coming to Munich. And I got to figure out how to get her in the game. She's not a Panthers fan anyway, so don't really feel like that obligated to get it done. And like her uncle lives in Munich, so she'll be fine either way. Hopefully she's like not outside this studio listening to this right now. That would be kind of bad. She doesn't listen to the show, so I think I'll be okay. I think her mom does though, so this could get back to her at some point in time. Oh, either way, I'm probably not going to, don't think I'm going to have to buy tickets. So the only way I've been seeing it so far, for all the folks that are asking, I know on Panthers.com, well, Roaring Riot, we had Josh Klein on, and I saw them tweet out on Tuesday, May 28th, that they still had available packages because people are dropping off because of the dates or maybe it's the price. So that's one way to do it. And maybe the easiest way, as far as I think they're booking a lot of your accommodations, a lot of things that you want to do. Like, you're good there. You don't really have to worry about too many things. They do a great job with their road trips. The Roaring Riot does. So that's one option. It's an expensive option, but it's one option. Another option is on location, where they have several different packages depending on how long you want to stay in Munich, where it looks like it is from like $1,000 to like $4,000 or $5,000. Obviously, that's not cheap. and looking at some of the prices of tickets, because Vivid Seats, that is where I see they have tickets for sale. And I saw like nosebleeds for $560 when looking at it today on Wednesday, May 29th. That's a lot of money. Do you want to spend like the flights or right now $600? Last time that's what I got my flight for, and I had to pay for extra legroom, of course, but $600 for a flight. Then your accommodations were probably looking like another grand there. Then $500 for the game, and that's not even including eating and all the other stuff that you're going to do as a tourist that week in Munich. So that's I don't know people's budgets. I know it's a lot. I talked to my friend's family about this on Saturday, and they were all like they want to go, but they look at ticket prices, don't feel like they can do it. I try to look back and see what happened in the past. I know the game in Frankfurt apparently was a lot easier to get tickets to a couple of years ago when they had that first game in Munich. It was pretty tough with the Bucks and with the Seahawks, I think, in large part because it's Tom Brady, but also they hadn't had a game in Munich in a long time. It seems like in like June or July, they're going to have an availability to get tickets, and you're going to have to basically get in a raffle, and it's basically a lottery, and I'll give you a chance to get them for face value. But right now appears to be the best opportunity to go is with the Roaring Riot or to do an on-location ticket package. And quite honestly, if the best way to get a decent seat in that building is to pay $1,000 on Vivid Seats, you might as well just go pay $1,000 to On Location and be able to get their like VIP treatment where you get a tailgate package and like free drinks and all that, and get something all inclusive opposed to just getting one seat to a ball game. That's just something. So I don't know. I'm going to, of course, relay all the information I can get to you to help anyone who's planning to go to Munich that's not going to be taking part in the Roaring Riot, or who's not willing to spend the money on location or whatever, or on Vivid Seats. I'm going to do everything I can to tell you all the best way to get affordable tickets, if that is even a thing. But as far as me, I'm probably going to be taken care of. And hopefully y'all still will come. Maybe if you can't go to the game, maybe you just come hang out. I don't know. Because it seems like it's going to be a great atmosphere the entire week with Panther fans just running all over the place, especially if you stay in Center City. But I understand you're going to go all the way to Munich, fly 8 hours, then 10 hours back. You want to go see your team. Totally get it. And I hope it works out for y'all. And it sucks because I've heard from the UK listeners of the show, and they talk about how cheap it is comparatively to go to the games there in London. Well, they get 3 games, and it's 3 different opportunities, where this is 1 game, 1 opportunity, supply and demand, basic economics. And I'm not trying to talk down anybody, but like, that's kind of how it works, it seems like. And it is disheartening that the NFL makes it so difficult for fans. And that's part of the thing. Like, it was disheartening that it took until May for them just to tell fans when they could go to the game, when they could make their time for accommodations. Because you're talking about you're releasing the schedule date at the same time, and then apparently you're releasing ticket prices at the same time. That's a lot to throw on people, to throw a flight that at the very least is $600, but if you're tall, it's like $800 plus hotel, which is, for me, it's like $1,300, and then tickets, which are super expensive. The league's got to do a better job. They really do, at making this accessible. Now, do international games need to be accessible to the American fan base? I suppose not, but they could do it better for the people who live abroad, who are going to come from UK or who live there in Germany, get an opportunity to go see the team play. So I don't know. I'm going to help y'all out the best I can by passing on the information, but I cannot sit here and tell you that I know currently a cheap way of getting tickets. I know easy way. It's just clicking and putting it on your credit card and then figuring it out later. But that also may not be a feasible situation for a lot of people, and likely not the most financially fiscal thing to do. All right, that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, you'll subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Fridays throughout the offseason, I'm right here answering your weekly Friday mailbag questions, either at me or DM me over on Twitter at Julian Council to get those questions into me right now. Do not delay. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all tomorrow on Thursday.